This is Massachusetts Beer Review number 10. We have Dave with us today on Beer Review number 10. This might be a little biased of a review, but I'm going to try to keep it in open mind as I review it. This is the Youngs and Wells Double Chocolate Stout. This is the Nitro Widget can form. They also make it in a bottle. The Nitro Widget cans have a little CO2 ball inside of it that when you open it, it makes the hissing sound, and when you pour the beer, it'll create a nice English draft style beer with a nice creamy head and texture, just like when you get Guinness out of a glass at a bar. This is a premium dark ale brewed with natural mineral water and added natural chocolate flavor. 5.2% ABV. On the youngsandwells.co.uk site. Surprisingly, for a beer of the Youngs stable, Double Chocolate Stout has been recognized as an award-winning brew on several occasions. Luxurious at the same time with a hint of decadence, Young's Double Chocolate Stout has it all, delivering a satisfying, indulgent taste without ever becoming overly sweet. Fuggles and golden hops, real dark chocolate, and chocolate essence are combined to deliver a stout with real credentials. That was a mouthful. I think we should just get on with it and drink a beer.
Well, Tommy, before we start cracking into this thing.
Yes.
Have you actually ever had this beer before?
Yes.
Now, every time we try something new here,
I gotta keep an open mind in this one, because this is my favorite beer of all time.
Well, yet again, we're all bringing to the Stout family, and when you think of the Stout family, we always go to the king of stouts. Would be traditional Irish Guinness.
Everybody knows the Guinness. King, I don't know, but everybody really knows and recognizes Guinness for what it is.
Well, King, debatable exactly. The measuring stick for all the stouts, absolutely. However, exactly, getting back to it, when you first tried this new beer, what exactly did you think of when you first tried it?
The first time that I ever heard about this beer was actually, obviously, the first time I ever tried the beer. That was in 2009 when I became 21.
So still developing your taste palate at that
Guinness,
point.
obviously, yes, was, and you're correct. Guinness, obviously, yes, was the first really dark beer, dark beer that I ever had, and thought that, a chocolate version of the beer style that I like would just be a home run in the winter. So, had it at the Sunset Tap and Grill in Allston, Mass. after a Red Sox game, and was floored. And this was also in the Nitro Widget can form. I was floored by the beer. I cannot find another one that I like better than this one, but again, I'm going to keep an open mind on this one and see what I really, really think about it.
Well, the thing is, from my personal experience, I've had the pleasure of working at Wines and More Mansfield. It's a very large liquor establishment over there, selling wines and beer and different spirits.
Mansfield, Massachusetts?
Mansfield, Massachusetts, not Mansfield, Connecticut, not Mansfield, Ohio, not Mansfield, Texas, or any other.
Massachusetts beer reviews.
So, but nonetheless, though, this beer actually is one of our better-selling beers, and the reason why is because not just because it's an excellent tasting beer, but because people that are just trying out this beverage before, you have the ability to mix it here and there, which everyone tries to figure out, what can I mix here and there to try something of a new taste?
Yep.
And we all try it for some time, and sometimes we realize we hit a home run, or sometimes we hit a foul ball.
Okay.
The foul ball is always going to taste pretty bitter.
Exactly.
However, tasting this Young's Double Chocolate mixed with any type of banana beer or blueberry beer, it's a very fine compliment. So anyone that's listening or watching, try it out at your local store. You won't be disappointed. Let's get down to brass tacks here, shall we?
All right. I'm going to let you start there. He's got the traditional Guinness-style pub glass. I have what they call just a standard old stout glass. So you open up the beer, just like with the Guinness can.
And you will hear kind of a hissing.
You hold it at an angle. And about maybe 2/3 of the way up, you tilt the glass all the way forward, and you pour pretty much directly into the center of that beer. And then my glass is not going to allow me to get the whole beer in it yet. But I don't think you can see that really. Let me try to show you. But just like with the Guinness, you can see how it looks kind of that tan color, and then some of the black is coming up. You want all of that head to form properly until it gets entirely a black color.
The presentation of it,
and then once that
very similar.
And then once that black color is totally there, and all you're left with is that creamy head on the top, you know the beer is ready to be consumed. So I'm going to try to get a little bit more of this beer in there. I may not be able to.
Yeah, this is the advantage of actually drinking out some of the Guinness glasses these days. They're specifically made for the job of. Someone's cheating here a little bit here, but they're actually made to handle these kind of drinks. I mean, they're not meant to hear like light beer here and there. They're meant to hear like dark, heavy kind of beers.
All right, this was about $9.48 for the 4-pack of these guys. All right, let's give this thing a smell. A little bit of an aroma.
Let's go for the smell of it.
Here. Sorry, yeah. One thing I can tell about a lot of stouts like your Guinness, your Beamish, Murphy's, and even Young's Double Chocolate Stout, is its very faint aroma. You don't get a whole bunch out of there. You do get a.
It's not overbearing. It's a little bit subtle, and usually dissipates after maybe a few seconds.
Yeah, so. it's just a very light roasted barley malt. You don't even get any chocolate in the nose.
Smell it. So after we kind of mentioned the smell for it, the next thing we're kind of looking at too as well is the overall coloration of it.
All right, my beer looks like it's settled down pretty good here.
So what would you say, Tommy boy, the coloration of your beer would be?
Let me look at it in the light here. It's pretty black. It's pretty dark. It does have some ruby red tinges towards the bottoms and the sides of the glass.
I'll agree to that too.
I noticed in my glass there's an interesting kind of looking carbonation, but it's not an overly carbonated beer.
Very true. So we can safely say it's one of our darker beers, not a light beer, but darker beers.
Very tan, very creamy head, very thick and rich looking head.
So we can agree basically that there actually is a well-established head to this beer. To some beers that you will pour later on as you kind of venture out, you'll find that some beers actually have a well-pronounced head, and some of them really just don't.
All right. The whole reason you're here would take you way too long. Let's taste the beer here. Double Chocolate Stout by Youngs and Wells. The chocolatiness is totally there. The way that I would describe that chocolatiness...
It's got dark roast chocolate.
It's like a dark roasted chocolatey... It's a dark roasted chocolatey milky kind of a flavor. It's almost like if it was a dark roasted chocolate milk almost type of a flavor in that one. For the chocolate flavor on that.
Definitely agree to it. I mean, when you originally taste it and you have it in your mouth for a little bit... It's not overbearing too as well, and it doesn't seem to linger so much because the taste usually dissipates maybe after 2 to 3 seconds, real quick. However, exactly, it does actually leave a nice impression basically on the tongue, just a little bit, not overly bearing though, but desirable and not just so much bitterness to it whatsoever. So it's very much sessionable, enjoyable.
It is definitely semi-sweet. It's got that, again, it's that dark chocolate kind of a milky consistency on that. There is a little bit of that roasted malt that you get that almost gives it a roasted coffee and cream type of an element.
I'd definitely like to pick that up a little bit too. So, I mean, one of the things that everyone tries to say is when they first begin their beer adventure, Tommy Boy, and they're trying to figure out which beer do they try it for, because everyone is kind of realizing later on in your journey there is a distinct difference between light beer and dark beer.
What are they what are people looking for? What are people trying? Not looking for, but what are people trying out? Well,
would you recommend?
When you say when you think the word beer, and we're gonna want to try out a beer, people are gonna want to think of, oh well, my dad had Milwaukee's Best, or my dad had Bud Light in the fridge. So that's what I think that beer really is. But
beer is an entirely different
much different
category in itself. But when we're looking at first-time people that are just trying out a beverage, would you definitely recommend this to be a first-time beverage to try out with someone?
This beer,
yes.
This beer I would see is not inoffensive in any way, shape, or form. Now, I think true to how a Guinness, kind of similar to a Guinness, it does have. It does, I'll get to that in a minute. It does have a little bit of that bitterness at the very end in the mouthfeel. The mouthfeel is definitely light to medium, towards the medium side, but it is a pretty nice and easy drinking beer. It's crisp and clean. I don't know if it's refreshing, but it's definitely crisp and clean, and it definitely doesn't stick around too long in the mouth.
Very true.
I do notice at this point, I wanted to say here, that now that I had a little bit of the beer here, and I smell it a little bit here, I do get a lot bigger of a chocolate note here. It's almost like that dark chocolate milk. It actually has a little bit of like a cocoa powder kind of a scent at this point. Once you get through some of the body of the beer a little bit here. It does actually have that nice smell to it. I mean, this is probably my favorite beer of all time because I can find no flaws with this thing. It's just I love stouts, but my favorite style is IPA. But I absolutely love stouts, and this is just the most enjoyable of flavors. It's so easy to drink. There's so little bitterness to it. It's so rich and creamy, and it just does not do anything off-putting to you. And there is a lot of people out there. Let me try it here and determine here again. Chocolate milk, definitely. There's a lot of people that you will find on YouTube here that cannot detect a huge amount of chocolatey presence out of this beer. And I'm not saying that those people are wrong. I just don't understand how you cannot find this beer to be extremely chocolatey. I mean, it's got a lot more in common with a Guinness than it does an Imperial Stout.
Well,
but it's not trying to be an Imperial Stout.
Well, when we're looking at this, most Imperial Stouts here, we're looking at much higher alcohol content here. By Young's Double Chocolate, this is a 5.2 alcohol.
This is considered, and the style here is considered a milk/sweet stout according to Beer Advocate. But before we get going any longer into this review than we actually have been right now, I'm gonna give this one another taste. I'm gonna start doing my final thoughts and grades. I'll let you know what I think.
One thing I want to say to you, Tommy Boy, though, is how much exactly did you pay for the 4-pack out of curiosity? Because remember, it does not come in a 6-pack.
I believe I mentioned this. If I didn't, I'm sorry. I believe this was about $9.48 at the Walpole Package Store in Walpole, Mass.
Now, one thing I recommend, and some liquor stores are actually doing this, but you actually may have the option to your local liquor store to actually go out and purchase one can of it. It'll be a lot cheaper, and it'll be a nice way to try it, rather than finding out that you tried it, you didn't like it so much, and you're kind of overburdened by having 3 beers left over.
Just check this. Just check it out. This is what your nitro widget cans do. They create all that nice creamy tan head. Looks just like the stout from the bar would look like because they use the CO2 to pressurize the beer, which is what the cans do. Look at that creamy lacing. I'm gonna go and give this thing out of 5. I'm gonna give this probably a 4.5 out of 5. Maybe you know what? I'll give this a 4.75 out of 5. And just because the only thing in this world that's absolutely more drinkable than this is water, but because this has way more flavor than water and it's way more desirable in the flavors to me, because I'm a little bit biased, sorry, I'm gonna give this a 4.75.
Well,
A+.
I don't mean to cut you off there, Tommy Boy, but a few points I want to recommend too. Fish fornicate in water, ladies and gentlemen. They do. So to say exactly a 4.75, I mean, he's being generous. The amount of stouts I've had over the years, I probably have to give this actually good brew, probably a 4.5.
Well,
the reason why I would probably give it is because when you're first trying it is a double stout. So yeah, again, there's not really too many double stouts really on the market that you really could say a really nice heavy look at, because even the Guinness Draft is just a single stout.
Yeah, and that's
usually been pretty much the measuring stick.
Guinness, to a lot of people, doesn't have a lot of flavor, doesn't have too much going for it. A lot of people that are drinking in the craft beer kind of a scene, if that's what we're going to call it here on YouTube, is considering Guinness to be almost a macro, meaning more of a mass-produced on the side of things, which means that they like to skimp and cut corners, but just because they skimp and cut corners and they call it mass-produced beer, it doesn't mean any way, shape, or form that we're downplaying
quality, yes.
Its quality or its craftsmanship. But I just think, if I can re-explain that 4.75 maybe, is I'm not going to give it a perfect 5 because
I can't give it a perfect 5 either.
even though I say this is my favorite beer of all time, I've not yet to try nearly any amount of the beers that are around in this planet Earth. So I could find one that's better than this, but at the moment, I know none. I know none better than Young's Double Chocolate Stout from Young's and Wells Brewing Company Limited in Bedford, United Kingdom.
And mind you, exactly, it is a double stout. So that has to be actually for the record, too, as well. One thing I want to say, though...
Double on the chocolate.
Even double the chocolate. But one thing I have to say, though, is that normally when I go from anywhere out, I want to go to getting a pint with my girl here and there, exactly, or I want to go out to dinner with my folks here and there. The thing that makes it so challenging is that most places that you go to, and I understand that you probably do the exact same thing, is the availability. And that's the thing that absolutely would drive you wild.
This doesn't have a lot of... This is usually available. I can find the Double Chocolate Stout no problem, usually at... Well, the package store I bought it at wasn't really a huge store, but usually at most liquor stores, they have a fairly nice selection for wine and liquor and the beer. It's not too hard to find this. If you can find the Guinness, the Beamish, and the Murphy's, you should probably be able to find this with relative ease. Relative ease. I'm not gonna say it's easy, but
you're looking to the UK varieties.
Yeah, you got the nitro cans with the nitro widget, and you also have it in the bottles. The bottle is not going to give you this creamy style draft head, which is one of the other reasons why I like the canned version as my favorite beer. I love the bottled version, but the canned version just has a creamier, velvetier, smoother texture to me than the bottle will ever give you.
This is actually very true to what exactly he's saying. Most times you see even Guinness and a beer and a style that I absolutely hold which high regards. The actually cans are a lot better than actually getting the bottles. Mm-hmm. When you're giving it that pour too as well, you can always see the difference too as well.
Right.
And it's when you pour, for example, a Guinness in a bottle, you almost get like a very subtle black liquid, and you don't see that constant movement when you pour it from a can exactly. And it's something that you can always kind of look forward to. However, when it comes down to Young's Double Chocolate, it is a fantastic beer to drink. Only problem I might actually say to you as well is most local bars probably around your area may not have it, so you might have to go to a specialty bar like an Irish or an English kind of.
Like I said, the first place I went to when I got it was the. I'll post a link below in the descriptions because it's an awesome place here in the area, in the Boston area. It's called the Sunset Tap and Grill in Allston, Mass. I believe they have over 325 taps on hand. And
Specialty
no, this wasn't. This was the beer that I got, and obviously no, it's not on tap. But I needed to try because I was such a young fella, needed to get this thing going.
So get into the entire thing, kind of to wrap us all up too as well. I definitely recommend this beer to anyone that does enjoy drinking beer. Is it a good style of beer to start off with too? I recommend it highly. It's a lot more women friendly because women actually have proven scientifically more taste buds than actually men do. That actually is proven. Besides,
they always go for the flavored drinks in the first place, and this one's a flavored beer, which may turn some craft beer guys off, but
nonetheless,
it shouldn't.
It's worth the investment. Definitely worth actually trying to as well. So if you get the chance to take a sip of it, I highly recommend it.
Pure luxury, fellas. All right, I'm going to call this one a very successful, and now that we've done it, my first ever Massachusetts Beer Review Discussions. I will call this Massachusetts Beer Review number 10, Discussions on Young's Double Chocolate Stout. I give this an A+, 4.75 out of 5. And as I always say, grab your glass. And as I always say, until next time, keep tasting those great beers. Cheers, everybody.
Stay thirsty.